Hey guys, this is Mr. Sal. We're going to have a quick lesson on finding slope, using slope, and writing equations. Thanks for watching. Alright, you guys take a minute, actually take a couple minutes and find the slope of each of these lines. After you find the slope, then write the equation for all three as well. Alright, so we're going to find for each of these the rise and the run. And we'll take the rise and divide it by the run. And that will tell us the slope. From there we'll need the y-intercept to write the equation. So we just need to find 2 points on this line so that we can make our stair step or our right triangle. So on this one we see that it goes up, and that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes up 5, that's a rise of 5, and then to the right 1, and 5 over 1 would be 5. So that's our slope. Then to write the equation, y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept. We just found the slope, and we can see the y-intercept is going through this point here at 0, 0, so you could put plus 0 if you wanted to. And that would be the equation for the line. So this next one, rise over run. Again, we just need to choose 2 points, such as this one and this one. We need those points defined. Otherwise, we may get some fractional or decimal values, which we don't want. So I'm going to look at this one this way. And you could have chosen 2 other points. There were lots of points to choose from on this line. But on this one, I see that it goes up. How far up does it go? Starting here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's a rise of up 7. And then from there, would have to go to the right. And how far to the right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's to the right 7, and when we simplify this, we get a slope of 1. So next up, we'll write the equation for that, and right now we know it's a slope of 1. Next up, all we need is the y-intercept, which is also again here at the origin, 0, 0. So we put plus 0 there, and that would be the equation. And then on this final one, we need to find the slope. So I'm going to choose 2 points that I can see that go through the grid corners, this one and we'll say this one right here. And then of course we'll make the triangle, and this one shows going up and to the right. So my rise is going up. How far up is it going? Starting there, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got a rise of up 4, that's positive 4. And then to the right, starting here, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 4 over positive 10, which would simplify to 2/5. So in the equation, of course, we'll start with y equals something x. And we know that our slope is 2/5, so that will be the coefficient of x. So y equals 2/5 x. And then we find the y-intercept right here. Again, it's the origin at 0, 0. So again, we can write plus 0. Now on all 3 of these, if you didn't put the plus 0 because it's the identity property for addition, that would be fine as well. And these 3 just indicate that the lines are proportional because they're straight and go through the origin. Alright, so let's take a minute, if the sub has not already, have the sub pass out the worksheets for today. The worksheets for today are the white worksheets, so take a minute and have those passed out. Alright, you guys should have this white worksheet now, so let's go ahead and get started on these first 5 problems. So on these first 5, we want to find the slope of each of the lines. So take a minute on number 1 with your neighbor and see if you can figure out the slope of the line, then we will go over this one. Alright, let's go and find the slope of this line right here. And to start off again, we need 2 points that are on these grid corners, like this one or these grid corners. Of course, these ones need to be on the line, right? So we're looking at this point and this point right here. Those were the only 2 we could choose from the ones that we can see. So we'll make our triangle or stair step. This one shows that it goes up, starting here at the point. It goes up 0, 1, 2, 3. And from there it goes to the right. Starting here, that would be 1. So the slope, which is rise over run, the rise was up 3, and the run was to the right 1. This would simplify to 3. This would be the slope. Alright, you guys take 1 minute to find the slope of this line right here. 1 minute. Do it with your neighbor. Go. Alright, that was a minute right there, so let's go ahead and find the slope of this line. And this one gave us several points to choose from. And of course, we'll be taking the rise and dividing it by the run. So I'm looking at this point here and this point here. Of course, you could have chosen these 2 points as well. But I'm just going to focus on those 2 outside ones just because those are the first ones that I saw. So this is what my triangle would look like right here, which shows it going down and to the right. So we need to figure out how far down it goes, starting at the point 1, 2, 3. So it went down 3, which is a rise of -3 to show the down. And then to the right, starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that'd be -3 over 6, which would simplify to -1 over 2, or -1/2. And that would be the slope of this line. Alright, this is the third example on your worksheet. Take a minute and find the slope of this line. 1 minute. Talk about it with your neighbor. Get it done. Go. Alright, that was 1 minute. You should have the slope on this thing. If not, just finish up what you're doing and then follow along. So I'm going to identify 2 points on this line, such as this one, and maybe even this one. But there were several on this line that you could have used. And of course, we'll be comparing the rise to the run as a fraction. Now my rise on these 2, it goes up 0. Actually, it doesn't go up at all. So that would have a rise of 0. And for me, I'm going to go to the right here. How far to the right? Starting at this point, 1, 2, 3. And 0 divided by 3 is 0. So the slope on this one is 0. Now again, we've talked about this before, but a 0 slope means that there is no slope, which means it's a flat horizontal line, which means it's the least steep of a line that we can possibly draw. Alright, number 4, do this one with your neighbor. Again, we're just looking for the slope on this one. Take 1 minute with your neighbor and do it. Go. Alright, that was 1 full minute with your neighbor to get that one done. So end your conversations and let's get started on this one. I'm going to choose 2 points to find the slope on this thing. I'll choose this point here and this one. And then I'll make my right triangle like this. And I can see the way that I've drawn it. It goes up and then to the right. So for my rise, it's going up. So that's going to be positive 1, 2. So that's a positive 2 for the rise. And then the run, which goes to the right, starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's positive 4 because it goes to the right. And this would simplify to 1/2. That would be the slope of this line on number 4. Alright, take 1 minute with your neighbor and find the slope of this line. Talk about it with your partner, talk about it with your neighbor. 1 minute, go. Alright, that was 1 minute. So go ahead and end your conversations. Let's get looking at this one and find the slope of this line. So I see that I've got this point here and looks like I'll use this point there. And this will be my right triangle or the stair steps. This shows going down and to the right. So how far down does it go? Starting from this point 1, 2, 3. So it's down 3, so that'd be a negative 3 for my rise. And to the right, starting here, 1, 2. So to the right 2, that'd be a positive 2, and we could just rewrite this as a negative 3 halves. But remember, if you by chance drew your triangle like this, then you may have went up and to the left. It just changes where that negative is. You'd have a positive 3 over a negative 2 right there. But the answer would still be the same. This should be the back side of your paper. For exercises 6 and 7, the points from each table lie on a line. Use the table to find the slope of each line, then graph the line. So these ones are horizontal. We won't see any of these on the test. All of the ones on the test are vertical tables, but it's okay. It should help us to just kind of solidify how to find the slope of a line from a table, no matter how it's oriented. And then we should be able to graph these. So take a couple minutes with your neighbor to find the slopes of these two, and then graph both of the lines. We'll go ahead and start the minute right now. Alright, let's go ahead and get started on this table, finding the slope. We'll start with number 6. So the slope, we know the y gives us the rise values, and the x gives us the run values. We just got to find the changes between any two x's and their corresponding y's. I'm going to start with the y's because slope is always rise over run. And this one from negative 3 to negative 1, that would be up 2. So my slope starts with an up 2, and then the run going from 0 to 1 would be to the right 1. So that's 2 over 1, which would be 2. Next up, before we start on number 7, let's go ahead and just graph these points. I have 1 at 0, negative 3, 1, negative 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, and 4, 5, which would be this point. And it should also be good for us to notice on this one, with the graph specifically, that it's up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, and up 2 to the right 1. So the slope is consistent, which is why it's a constant rate of change. And since we can see that, we should be able to connect these points with the line. Alright, so that was for number 6. Let's go ahead and do number 7 as well. So we'll find the slope again. The y values tell us the rise, and the x values tell us the run. And it's always rise over run. So I want to see the changes in these x's and y's and their corresponding values. I'm going to again just use the first two and find the changes. So from 5 to 3, that would go down 2, which means that's a negative 2 rise. And the run goes from 0 to 1, that would be to the right 1. And negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. So from there, we'll just go ahead and graph these points just like we did for number 6. 0, 5 right here, 1, 3 here, 2, 1 there, 3, negative 1, and 4, negative 3 here. And once again, I'm just going to point this out, that the slope is shown in that graph as well. Down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Finally, all we'll need to do is graph the line. So we're looking specifically at the orange line and the purple one. Those would be the two lines from using the table or just a point in the slope even. Alright, here's numbers 8 and 9. Take 1 minute with your neighbor and find the slope of both of these. 1 minute, go. Alright, that was more like a minute and a half. That's okay, because we're going to be using the formula to determine the slope of these two lines. So let's start with 8 first. So to use the formula, we know we're going to be subtracting the y values and also the x values from each other. So all we got to do is figure out which is which. And for me, I'm going to say that x1 and y1 would be our first point there. So x1 is 1, and y1 also is 1. So I can go in here into the formula and replace those. y1 is 1, and x1 is 1. Next up, we have an x2 value, which is 6, and a y2 value, which is 3. So I'm going to go in here and replace these two with those respective values. The x value is 6, and the y value is 3. So when I solve for this one and simplify it, that would be the slope of the line. 3 minus 1 is 2, 6 minus 1 is 5, and that can't be simplified anymore, so that would be the slope between the 2 points, 1, 1 and 6, 3. For the next 2 points right there, J and K, we're going to do the same thing here. So again, we should be able to label these. I've got, we'll say this is x1 here, and y1. So I'm going to go into x1 and y1 in the formula, and just replace those. So x1 is negative 4, and y1 is 6 right there. And next up, we got an x2 value of negative 4, and a y2 value of 2. So I'm going to go and replace those as well. So again, x2 there is negative 4, and y2 is 2. So evaluating this, I've got 2 minus 6, which is negative 4. And negative 4 minus negative 4 is 0. That's an undefined slope, because we're dividing by 0 in this case. Which means that if we were to graph it, it would be a vertical line on that one. We can tell because the x values are the same in both of the points. So this one has an undefined slope. Alright, take a minute and a half for numbers 10 and 11 with your neighbor. Talk about these two and how you would find the slope of them, and then find the slope. Again, 1 minute and a half. Go. Alright, so for numbers 10 and 11, we're going to use the formula again. And that's for both of these. We just need to define which is x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. So I'm going to say that, again, the first point would be x1 and also y1. And then the second point, that would be x2 and the y2 values. So I just need to go into the formula and replace all 4 of these. So x1 was 3, and y1 is negative 7, x2 is negative 1, and y2 is negative 7. So evaluating this, negative 7 minus negative 7 is 0, and negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. But 0 divided by anything should be 0, so we have a slope of 0. Again, that means that there's no real slope on this line. If we were to graph it, it would be a straight horizontal flat line. Next up, we're going to do the same thing with number 11. So let's go ahead and figure out which values are which. Again, I'll just say that this is x1 and y1. So x1 is 7, y1 is 2, and then x2 is negative 1, and y2 is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and replace those values in the formula. So x1 is 7, and y1 is 2, and x2 is negative 1, and y2 is 3. Evaluating this, 3 minus 2 is 1, negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8. This cannot be simplified, so that would be the slope for number 11 between the 2 points, 7, 2 and negative 1, 3. Alright, this is the next sheet, so go ahead and take a minute. Let's read this first, I guess. Determine if the line that represents each equation has the same slope as the equation y equals 2x minus 4. Take 1 minute on these 4 and determine if each of these has the same slope as that equation up here, 2x minus 4. 1 minute with your neighbor, go. Alright, so that was 1 minute with your neighbor. Hopefully you got that down. Just from the regular form of the equation, and it's over on the board for us. but we know that they should be written in this form: y equals the slope, and that is multiplied by the x value, and then we add the y-intercept. Now in a different part of this unit we refer to slope as rate of change and the y-intercept as the starting value, which would still work, and if that works for you, that's fine. But just from all of these four equations right here, we can identify the slope of each, and we just want to know if the slope is the same as this equation up here. So if I start with number 1, I can see that the slope, which is usually denoted with that letter m, it's the coefficient of x here, which is 2. On number 2, the slope would be the coefficient of x again, -2. On number 3, the slope is the coefficient of x again, which is 4. And on number 4, the coefficient of x is 3. Now notice I'm not including x in the slope because x is a variable part of the equation, so it's not the actual slope, it's what I multiply the slope by. In the original equation, the coefficient of x was 2. So only one of these has a matching slope, and that's number 1. Number 1 has a matching slope of 2. 2 is close, but it's a negative. 3 is not 2, and 4 does not have a slope of 2 either. Now again, I'm just basing this off of the general form for the equation, and the y-intercept, by the way, is not important in this one. We were just asking about the slope. Now the reason why this is important is because when slopes are the same and y-intercepts are different, then we get parallel lines. All right, this is an interesting question. Number 5, which hill would it be easier to push a heavy cart up? One with a slope of 1/2, 1/6, 3, or 5, and write a sentence on your worksheet for this one explaining why you would choose that one. But before you do that, take a minute and talk to your neighbor about this question and then answer it with a full sentence. 1 minute, go. Alright, so let's look at this question again. Which of these slopes would be easier to push a heavy cart up? And you may say none because it's a heavy cart, but what we really wanted you to understand on this one is the one of these slopes that has the lowest rise to run ratio would be the slope that should be the easiest to push a heavy cart up. So this would be 1/2 because it has the lowest rise to run ratio. And that, of course, would make the hill the least steep. So we should have chose 1/2 for this one. All right, number 6. Which ski run would probably give you the greatest speed down a hill when you are skiing? One with a slope of 1/8, 1/4, 1, or 2. Take 1 minute with your neighbor again and discuss this one, and then write a full sentence about which one you believe would give you the greatest speed down a hill. 1 minute with your neighbor, go. Alright guys, so this one's very similar to the last one, except for we want a greater slope now. So if we were going down the hill, we would want a slope with a higher rise to run ratio. So if we look at these ones and make fractions out of the 1 and 2, not that some of you would need it, but we can see that the 2 to 1 ratio is going to be the highest of the 4, which again would make the slope much steeper. Now if you said 1/8 on that one actually is going to be the least steep because the rise on that one is 1 and the run is 8. So you have a long run before you have any rise on that slope. Number 7. Which roof would be the most dangerous for a roofer? One with a slope of 1/16, 1/10, 1/2, or 3/2. Take a minute with your neighbor and discuss this one. Talk about it and then write a full sentence about which one you would choose and why. 1 minute for this one, go. So which roof would be the most dangerous for the roofer? It's going to be the one with the biggest slope, because think about it like this, right? If we had something, let's even exaggerate that a little bit more, and if you're a roofer and you're high up off the ground, right, then this is more dangerous because you're more likely to slide off this thing. But if we were to take the roof and make it less steep, then it's a little bit easier to walk on and hopefully a little bit easier to stay on so that you don't fall off, but you can actually stay on the roof. Of course, you should wear protective equipment one way or the other, but what this means for us and just this question is the most dangerous one would be this 3/2 because it has the highest rise to run ratio. Alright guys, take a minute with your neighbor. From these slopes, this is from number 7 and I've shown them here, from exercise 7, which would be the easiest for the roofer. Take 1 minute with your neighbor, discuss it, and then write a full sentence on why you chose that one. 1 minute with your neighbor, go. Alright, so the steepest one was this 3/2, right? So that would be the most dangerous one. So we're looking more for something that would be the easiest, which means it has to have the lowest rise to run ratio. That for us is going to be this 1/16 right here. 1/16 has the lowest rise to run ratio, meaning the run is the biggest in comparison to the rise, if you wanted to look at it that way. Alright, this one will work this way for both 9 and 10. We need to draw the line with the given slope through the point on each of these. So take a minute on number 9, talk about it with your neighbor how you would do it, and then graph the line. 1 minute with your neighbor, go. Alright, so first thing we're going to do on this one to graph it, so you should have ended your conversations already, but P is at 5,1, which would be this point right here. From there, we're going to use the slope to find the rest of these points. So I'm going to just kind of shift this so I can see the exact values. That's going to be -1 over +3, which means I'm going to go down 1 and then to the right 3 from this point. So from there I'm going to go down 1 and then to the right 3, which would give me this point. And I can see that kind of finishes off where I can go on this graph. So I'm going to actually shift this again. Instead of it being -1 over 3, I'm going to make it +1 over -3. What this does, and we'll do it in a different color here, is it makes us go up 1, but then to the left 3. And that's going to match the pattern that we just saw. So I'm going to go up 1 to the left 3, which would be this point. Up 1 to the left 3, up 1 to the left 3, and we should be seeing a straight line as we complete this pattern through these points. So let's go ahead and connect them and see what we get. So yeah, we can see that's a straight line that goes through each of the points with the slope of -1/3, but it crosses through that 5,1. So this is how we use a point and then the slope to find the other points on this graph without needing the equation or a table. Alright, try number 10 with your neighbor as well. Just see if you can use the same strategy that we did on number 9. Talk about it with your neighbor and complete this one 1 minute with your neighbor. Go. Alright, time's up on that one. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now again, the strategy is going to be the same. The first thing I'm going to do is graph the point -2, 4, which would be this point, about right there. And then we need to look at that slope. Now that's just a straight 3 right there, but we can manipulate it as much as we want. The slope is 3, but I'm going to make it 3 over 1. Now that means both of these are positive, and that means I'll go up 3, and then to the right 1. So let's see what that does from this point. If I go up 3 to the right 1, and I've got this point, and then up 3 to the right 1, which gives us this point. Now that's pretty specific, and that looks pretty good. However, I want more points on this just to emphasize. So if I have a slope of up 3 to the right 1, I can also say that I've got down 3 and to the left 1. And this would simplify to a positive 3 either way. So I can show that I would go down 3 and then to the left 1 also. So down 3 to the left 1, again it shows that linear pattern there. And we'll connect all these with the line here in a moment. Down 3 to the left 1. Now this is making the stair steps also, which we should understand because of the lesson that we had on this one, by connecting the points with the stair steps. Alright, so there's our line right there, the purple one. And this again is a straight line, which is what we should expect from having a constant rate of change, which is a slope. So again, this is how you would graph a line from a point and a slope. So on these next three, we're going to be writing the equation for each of these lines, which means you need the slope and the y-intercept. So take a minute on this one, talk with your neighbor about how you would write the equation, and then we'll go over it. 1 minute with your neighbor, go. Alright, let's see if we can figure this one out. Now we'll start with the basic form, right? We got some kind of y, and that should equal the slope times the x. So I'm going to just leave a space here for the slope, and then we'll add in the y-intercept right here. So let's find first the slope. Okay, so I just need to choose 2 points on this line, and then I'll create a stair step, which will then allow me to figure out the rise and run. So you could, if you wanted to, you could have used this point, this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one to find the slope. For me though, I'm going to use, well, I'll use these 2 points right here. So this shows going down and then to the right. How far down does it go? Starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it went down 4, that's a rise of -4. And to the right, 1, 2. So -4 divided by 2 is just a -2 for the slope, and that will be the coefficient of x. The next thing I need is the y-intercept. So I'm looking at this line, and it crosses the y-axis right here at this point, 0, 3. Now of course we don't plug this in as an ordered pair, we just show the y value, which is in this case a +3. So this would be the equation for this graph. Alright, take 1 minute on number 2 and write the equation for this line. Talk about it with your neighbor, figure it out. 1 minute, go. Alright guys, let's go over this one also. So the general form, y equals the slope times the x plus whatever the y-intercept is. So we'll just fill in those blanks as we go. And we'll find the slope just to start with. So I'm going to start with this point here and this one. And I'll connect them to make the triangle. It shows it goes up and then also to the right. Again, the question is how far up, starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the slope went up 6, which is the rise, and then the run, starting here, 1, 2 to the right. So that's a +2. This simplifies to 3, and that is our slope, 3. The next thing we need on this one is the y-intercept, which is at the origin, 0, 0. And you could put +0 if you want. Some of you guys would just write y equals 3x, and that would work also. So either one of these would work as the equation for this graph. Alright, here's number 3. Find the equation for this line, write it out, talk about it with your neighbor. Take 1 minute to do it. Go. Alright, for number 3, we should have the same pattern on this one. Y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept, whatever it is. And again, to find the slope, we'll just choose 2 points. This time I'll choose 2 that are closer together. And I'll make my triangle. It shows that it goes down 1. So, that gives me a rise of -1 because it went down 1. And then from there it goes to the right, also 1. So that's a positive 1, and this would simplify to be -1. So I'm going to show that slope of -1, so -1 times the x, the y-intercept. Again, the line crosses the y-axis here at the point 0, -3. Now this y value is at -3, so that's all I need in the equation, and this would be it right here. Alright, so you guys have tried this one before, but I still want you just to evaluate it again. Think about what we've learned today and throughout the unit, and then we'll just show you the answers for this one, so you don't have to worry about the explanation, because we've gone over it before. But take 1 minute just to evaluate it real quick. Alright, that was your minute. So whether you're finished or not, you should have that done, hopefully. But here are the answers. Alright, so there you go. Alright, next up we're going to take a short quiz. You guys should be able to finish this before the end of class. Once you finish, just keep it, and then we will go over it so you can check your answers. Alright, you should have that done. Here we go. Alright, you should have that scratch paper out. Here is the quiz. I'll give you guys a few minutes to do this one. And then, like I said, we'll go over it so you guys can check your answers. Alright, you guys should be finishing up by now. Let's go ahead and give you guys 15 more seconds to finish up, and then we will go over it. Alright, we have done several problems like these already today, and we do want the equation, but let's find the slope, which we would need for the equation anyways. So I'll do this one a little bit faster, but I'm going to choose these 2 points here, and I can see that goes up 5, and then from there it would have to go to the right another 5. So for my rise over run, I've got 5 over 5, which would be 1. So in the equation, y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept. Right now I have a slope of 1, and the y-intercept right there is at the origin, 0, 0. So again, you can put plus 0 right there, or if you just wanted to write y equals 1x. Some of you guys would even take this further and just say y equals x, and that works also. The next line, I'll use this point here, and we'll say this one right here. So I'll connect these, and I can see it goes down, which is in the negative direction. It appears to go down 8 by counting, and then to the right 6. So my rise is -8, my run is +6, and this would simplify to be -4/3. So in my equation, y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept. I have a slope of -4/3, and the y-intercept again right here, this one's at the origin, 0, 0. So I'll put +0 right there. The next one, so we'll find the slope on this one. I'll use this point here and this one, and I can see it goes down 3, and then to the right 1. So my rise is -3, my run is +1, and this simplifies to be -3. So I've got a y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept, and I already have my slope of -3. And once again, we have y-intercept there at 0, 0. So again, we can put +0 if we want. And that would be the equations and the slopes for all three graphs. So that concludes the lesson. Keep the quizzes so you guys can study from those for the test, which is next week. A day, that'll be on Monday, and B day will be on Tuesday. So keep those, study from those. Take a minute and put the calculators back, and please pick up the floor around your desk. And we'll see you guys later. Alright, you guys, that does it for this video. Thanks for watching. If it helped you out, please subscribe to the channel and like the video and leave a comment below. We'll see you guys in the next one.